So we are gonna have a best of 3, and it's 0-0, and in the top right corner in the yellow pieces we're going to have Franscar, who is the highest rated ladder player on EU, I think, except for perhaps Dirtybag. Dirtybag was invited to this tournament, but he did not want to, and we have a little shout out from Heusa for some reason, and he is in the bottom right corner. I'd also take this time, I forgot to mention that, but we do want to thank our sponsors for tomorrow's event, who is Twitch TV and Razer Zone, and this event is of course closely linked to tomorrow's event. They have both put in quite a bit of money into this event, so we really appreciate that. Let's talk a little bit about Starbow. So Starbow is a mixture of Brood War and StarCraft 2. It takes the fundamentals from Brood War, and it adds some of the unique and interesting mechanics from StarCraft 2, and also some of the units from StarCraft 2, but it's more equal or reminiscent of Brood War than it is of StarCraft 2. All the macro mechanics that you find in StarCraft 2 have been heavily nerfed in Starbow and are not as important as they are in StarCraft 2. So you're going to see Zerg players, for example, make a lot more macro hatches because the inject for Queen is a lot less effective. And the same for Protoss. The Chrono Boost is a little less effective, but the biggest nerf to Chrono Boost is the fact that you don't have it until you upgrade it on the Nexus, and that upgrade requires a gateway. And we see a very common strategy from both Brood War and StarCraft 2 now, as Franscar is building his forge and going to probably put on a Nexus very quickly. He has not scouted his opponent yet, so he wanted to put the forge first. Also, the rush distances on this map from natural to natural is incredibly short because the distance from natural to main is so long. So you want to, in either case, I think, put down the forge first on this map, because circling rushing here is incredibly effective if you know where your opponent is, which Heusa does not know. They're both scouting each other in the worst possible patterns. I was curious to see if Franscar wanted to be cute and try and put down some cannons here, but he seemed to not want to do that. And so we have a cannon, we have the gateway going down, and the tech paths you'll see here are quite similar to StarCraft 2, as StarCraft 2 is also quite similar to Brood War in many ways. They're not completely independent of each other. And what Zerg can do from here is that he can try and he's gonna see this base now, and that should tell him that he could try and take a quick third base, maybe somewhere out on the map to grab a quick third gas, which is a little bit risky, or he can be very safe, especially on this map, and just take this base over here. And Protoss, of course, can do the same after a while. It is normal, of course, as in StarCraft 2, that Zerg has more bases than Protoss, because the Zerg economy does work differently with the larva and how the production works. Heusa's still going for no gas, which is quite interesting. So he's going to have a very late gas. He's going to go for a very economic focused opening. Not a lot of tech, a lot of workers, a lot of macro hatches. He feels very safe. Franscar doesn't really have any attacking units whatsoever, and a big opening here that he's not blocking up with anything. I assume his cybernetics core will be going here soon, so he can make the wall better. No, he's choosing the wall over here instead, leaving a quite vulnerable path here for his probes. That's going to be interesting to see. I thought that cybernetics core would go here, so that's was a little bit of a surprise. Now we have the Chrono Boost. It has been upgraded on this Nexus, and he gets this funky Washington Monument on the top. And that's how it is in Starbow. But we needed some sort of indication that it has been upgraded, so that's what we went for. So Franscar is moving out with a couple of Zealots now. Zealots are a little bit stronger in Starbow than they are in regular StarCraft 2. All the basic Protoss units are stronger in Starbow, because we do not have any sentries with force fields to protect them. So they need to be a little bit stronger by themselves. But that allows Protoss to be kind of the very strong race early game. And you always have to be careful of those basic units. 3 Zealots can kill a whole lot of Zerglings. So you want to get a whole lot of Zerglings to try and kill them. And that is exactly what Heusa is going to do right now. Tries to get us around to get these Zerglings. There is an ability called Rift, which he may use. And there we go, there we see it actually. And that's a Nexus ability where he teleports up to 5 units back to the Nexus. We have it right here, Rift. And that costs energy just as Chrono Boost does. So you might want to save a little bit of Chrono Boost energy for a Rift to save units that are in dire need as they were in that position. And Franscar is actually going to be going for it. He has a lot of Zerglings. And we could have seen another Starbow signature ability, and that is chrono boosting a photon cannon, which makes it shoot 50% faster. Because photon cannons in Starbow are quite weak, as they were in Brood War, with only 200 hit points in total, or 100 hit points, 100 shield. And they have even slower attack range than they do in Brood War, and you need to use that chrono boost to make them effective. So Heusa just has the map control right now with the Zerglings, and he's going to, tank production tab, there we go. He's going to go for a Hydra push in the meantime, it seems. Well, you need Hydras at some point anyway, usually, versus Protoss. And another unit that you would not see in StarCraft 2 is the Corsair that has just come out to pick out this Overseer, and that's probably why Heusa is getting those Hydralisks to defend versus the Corsairs. A lot of photon cannons incoming to make sure he stays safe. And actually, I like this. We have the Robo Bay, we have the Corsairs, we now have the D-Matrix ability that was from Brood War in Starbow. That's completely new from the latest patch, and I think Franscar is actually going to go for a really old school signature Brood War build, which is dropping Corsairs and making lots and lots of, dropping Reavers and making lots and lots of Corsairs. And it's a very difficult build to pull off. It requires a lot of actions per minute. It's basically, you can sit on very few bases, and you slowly build up a huge armada of Corsairs, and you get a couple of Reavers, like 2 or 4 Reavers, and you zone out areas with the Disruption Web. The Disruption Web, you cast it on the ground, and anything within that ground cannot attack, very similar to Blinding Cloud in Heart of the Swarm. And it's just its radius is a little bit smaller, and also the duration, I think. But he has to survive this. And the Zerglings almost sneaking by there. He needs to chrono boost those photon cannons. He's not doing it, so the Zerglings, can't talk. The Zealots won't be enough, but the photon cannon's still doing a good job, though. They do a lot of damage, they just don't have a lot of hit points, so you can go in there and snipe them easily. And he might even lose these Corsairs if he's not careful. In the meantime, I like Heusa taking that sneaky main base with some extra gas for some extra income. He has the range on the... No, he does not. He almost has the range on these Hydras. That will make them be able to pick up even more buildings from a distance, but he's fine with this distance. And with this build, you can't almost make too many cannons. You just want to stay super safe early on, build up that armada, and then you can make a much later push, even if Zerg has a lot of the map. And here we go, here comes the Reaver. And the Reaver should be able to do a lot of damage. Wow, and he's gonna snipe the Reaver! Very good play from Heusa. Still no chrono boost on the photon cannons. I don't know if he knows about that ability in Starbow, to be honest. And these Hydras might even get another Reaver for their effort, and I think this is going to be very difficult for Franscar to pull off this build. He has lost a lot of stuff initially. Heusa too, though, has lost a lot of Hydralisks, but he can afford it, I feel. He can throw more units away at Protoss than Protoss can throw at Zerg, because Protoss doesn't really have anything to threaten with, and that pylon is very, very vulnerable. He really should add a couple more pylons back here. That's a big Artosis pylon. He's going to go for it. No, he's just going to attack a lot of units. I don't know if I agree with that. And going to dodge that Scarab. Reavers, of course, are a unit that you could find a lot of in Brood War, but are gone from Heart of the Swarm. And he's going to try and kill these unbuildable rocks, probably a couple of cannons, and get a base over here in the island. That's a very good play because he's going for heavy air play with the Corsairs. How many Corsairs does he have now? He has 6 Corsairs, which I feel is too little at this point. Hopefully he'll be able to churn out more. I'm surprised he has not even made... he doesn't even have a gateway right now. He's just going Reaver Corsair, and he's finally getting the damage upgrade for the Reavers. That's going to be very important. So I'm very interested to see if Franscar can make this strategy work. This is a very long-term play. There's no way you can win quickly with this strategy, but you can whittle down your opponent very slowly. It's a very interesting build from Brood War, which I'm very curious to see how well it will transition over to Starbow. Maybe even add some Sentinels would be interesting into this build, because the Null Ward slow things down so the Scarabs can hit them more easily. Again, a small squad of Hydras just outside the range, so that Forge again is going to go down. It's going to be so frustrating for Franscar. He's doing a good number here. But in the meantime, finally, here comes the Reaver dropping. This is what he's been wanting. He wants to drop the Reavers, harass, get out of there, protect the Warp Prism with the Corsairs, which he's not doing at the moment, but that's okay. He managed to get out of there anyway, and he did get some workers killed. Not too many, though. So the strategy for Franscar is not really working optimal at the moment. The Spire is coming out. You may wonder, why is he making a Spire when there are all these Corsairs on the map? And the answer to that is Scourge. You want to try and snipe the Warp Prism, and if he's not careful, he might get sniped. Okay, there we go. Luckily for Franscar, Heusa did not check that area for the Warp Prism. And again, he's going to try and snipe this Forge, and I think he's going to get it if he tries. And he will, and he's going to get this Forge easily. But he might get a couple of kills in this Reaver. He's going to have to remake that Forge again, and probably at a better location. Now here we go. This is what you want. You want to have one Warp Prism with a couple of Reavers, protected by all these Corsairs. He needs to get the Disruption Web ability researched at some point, so he needs a Fleet Beacon for that. And here we go. He found this base, and he's going to kill a whole lot of drones, but a nice pull from Heusa. Heusa's going to try and get the Warp Prism, but he didn't do so. The Reavers for now are doing a lot of damage, having that damage upgrade. In the meantime, we have the Fleet Beacon incoming, and these Hydras take forever to get over here. A lot of damage done in the meantime, and he needs to keep the Warp Prism alive, and he targets down the Warp Prism, and he gets it, and that's a huge loss for Franscar, who only killed, well, he killed a lot of drones, but I don't know if that was worth it, to be honest. Especially thinking of all the bases Heusa can take on the map now quite easily, because there's no map control for this build. You have to sit back and do ninja terrorism strategies, I guess you could call them, where you just fly around. He hasn't even taken this base. I guess he doesn't really need that. Oh, and he's gonna lose a lot of Corsairs here. He needs to micro the Corsairs. He needs to separate the ones that are being targeted and try and shoot it down with the others, or just fly to safe cannons. And the cannons will shoot down. No, he stopped too early. He should have kept moving over the cannons, and loses some more Corsairs. In the meantime, a huge Hydra push here. He's got a couple of Reavers, some cannons to defend, and that can defend a whole lot of Hydralisks. I'm interested to see what Zerg will go from here. He's going for Hive. One way to counter this is Devourers, actually, and maybe even Vipers with Ensnare, and that's a very technical strategy. Devourers is kind of the Corruptor in Starbow. It's a unit from Brood War, which has very similar features from Brood War. The Devourer, the more it attacks, the slower your opponent units fire. So you don't want to get too many shots from them. That's a splash ability as well. So it doesn't do any... Well, of course it has a basic damage it does as well, but that's an additional ability. Tries to get this hatchery. Hopefully he won't lose. Oh, and he missed micros and loses the Reaver, and almost loses the dropship as well. And more Scourges incoming. This is like playing a game of Mario where you have like intercepting units and you have to move other units away. This is kind of interesting to see, but good micro here from Franscar, keeping that Warp Prism alive. Heusa wants to kill that so badly with those Scourges. And he's getting the carrier transition. I thought he made the Fleet Beacon for the ability of the Corsairs, but no, he just wants to go straight to mass air and go into carriers. I don't know if I agree with this. I think Heusa has a too strong of a position on this map. But on the other hand, what can he really do at this point? Franscar can try and you know, do some damage here and there, but I think Heusa really got this game. Oh yeah, he's killing the rocks. That's a good idea. Or the debris, so he can get through here if that's needed. Oh, and a lot of Scourges coming. Heusa not paying attention, losing the Warp Prism as well. And he's going to lose the rest of the Corsairs too if he's not careful. And here we go, flying right into Hydralisk, but the Hydralisks were not paying attention as much. In the meantime, though, there has been a Reaver here killing a lot of units. I can never see how many units a Reaver has killed because they're constantly constructing their shops, which are called Scarabs. But in total, we do have 16 workers killed for Franscar now, getting some value off of the Reaver drops, but he's really going to have to hide these carriers for as long as possible, make as many as possible, and strike as hard as possible before Heusa can react properly. He's getting 70 filers. Hydralisks under Dark Swarm are very good versus carriers. Dark Swarm, a spell on the spellcaster called Devourer, which is Hive Tech, and any unit under the Dark Swarm is protected by it, which means that no ranged units can deal damage to units under Dark Swarm. Very powerful spell, and will be a good counter to carriers when you have a lot of Hydralisks, because the carriers cannot deal damage to Hydralisks that are in Dark Swarm. Again, it's going to go for these drops. Very few Corsairs left now, and only going to kill some Spine Crawlers. Doing a lot of damage with these Reavers now because of the damage upgrades. Burrowing the drones is really nice. Oh, and that's the D-web, but you... Oh, wow, I never seen that before. So that's the disruption web that he's putting out. It means units inside them cannot attack. So he's trying to protect it from hydras, but that's a channeling ability, and you have to cancel it in order to move the Corsair, and I did not know that. That was interesting to see. Oops, sorry there. A little bit of spike, but this Reaver is out on a stroll, and he does not want to be here. But hopefully, Heusa will not find Franscar here. So this is turning into a game where Heusa pretty much has map dominance, but cannot really attack Franscar's main base because it's so well defended, and Franscar's just gonna have to add up as many units as possible and go for that big attack. And as Supernova Maniac typing something in Korean there for all to see, and I appreciate that. So here we go. Here comes the Dark Swarm. Here comes the sorry. Oh, and Plague on the interceptors. Sorry, a lot of things happening here. I can't even commentate. We have the disruption webs here, so the units inside cannot attack, and they're trying to macro around it. So we have spellcasters versus spellcasters. I don't think Heusa can break this at the moment. He needs some really good Dark Swarms, and Franscar needs to move away from the Dark Swarms. Okay, there we go. He's gonna lose one carrier, maybe two carriers. He might be able to take down the natural, and well, it really depends on the number of Dark Swarms he can get out and how well he can place them. He tries to keep all the units in Dark Swarm, tries to snipe the Defilers that are slightly outside of the Dark Swarm, but he gets the natural base, which was almost mined out though. But Heusa's going to be slow pushing this position, and Franscar's going to have to defend with his dare life with these carriers. And I don't know, I feel even if he can defend with the carriers, it still might be a very difficult road for him to try and actually, you know, win this game. More play going off on the Inceptors, making them much easier to pick off. And here comes some interestingly placed Reavers. Reavers do not care about Dark Swarm, but they do care about damage, and they die very quickly. And another carrier goes down. Really no point to try and engage within the Dark Swarm, but here we go. They're outside of the Dark Swarm. They're very vulnerable because some of them were hit with their own Plague, and now Franscar is going to be able to defend. Heusa overextending himself there a little bit, and also discovering that Franscar is trying to sneak in this base, and I don't think Heusa's gonna let that happen. Very well defended position here though, but still. So right now Franscar, I think, feels the need to make something happen in this game. Feels the need to try and do something about Heusa, and he's moving out with carriers. Carrier, of course, a unit that is both in Brood War and StarCraft 2. And our carrier is very similar to StarCraft 2 at the moment. Coming in with the Corsairs first, maybe wants to use some of that Disruption Web ability. These carriers will make a short number here, and we might just see something akin of a base race, because it's going to be a long stretch for him to regroup and come back to defend versus all these carriers. In the meantime, Franscar is very little defending his main base, putting one Reaver on top of the ramp there, but that's about it. But no, he's gonna go back and defend. He's gonna lose his Spire, which is not the biggest of deals, but if he loses too much tech, that might be a problem. Big Plague going down on all the interceptors there. Plague is a spell from the Defiler which slowly reduces the life of a unit down to 1. It cannot kill a unit. And we also have a Nidus Worm, which I like very much, because then he makes it much easier for him to bring the Hydralisk back and forth to defend. This is going to be a defensive Nidus Worm and not an aggressive one. And he manages to hold this. Franscar killing some tech, killing a base, but not the biggest blow to Heusa, I think, at the moment. Oh wow, that's very loud. It's a greater Nidus Worm. But Franscar is not done yet. He wants to make something happen. It's a lot of Scourge, a lot of Hydralisk, a lot of Defilers. The perfect composition to deal with this. And hitting a lot of Scourges there. Getting something up. What was that? Okay, I'm not... I think that was just a splash damage from this death animation of the Scourge. I was like, I've never seen that spell before. But it gets a huge Plague on all the carriers. And that is going to be very difficult for Franscar to hold now. His carriers are almost dead, and all Heusa needs to do is to just get enough units up, and he's gonna try and use these Vipers to get an Ensnare off. I guess that was an Ensnare I saw earlier, which slows down units, almost like Fungal, but they don't stick. They're not stuck completely. They just slow down. They don't take any damage either. But Franscar just not pulling back because he really feels that he has to make something happen with these carriers. I'm not sure what Heusa wants to do, if he wants to go for a counterattack or try to get up this ramp where there's a couple of Reavers defending with a lot of kills. So this is turning into be a very interesting game. He's gonna get a lot of tech though, and this is gonna be really bad for Heusa. He's gonna have a hard time remaking some of his units unless he's getting a lot of tech. Yeah, he's rebuilding his tech tree over here. So a very slow and meticulous game, and a slow and meticulous strategy from Franscar, but he might actually be able to take this. And here comes Heusa. He's gonna abduct some carriers. Can he get them picked off before they come back? Gets one, almost gets the other one. But another abduct is definitely gonna spell death for that one. Abduct something that is not in Brood War and would be a new strategy to counter this build. And I like this a lot. There's so little hit points left on the carriers from the Plague, and I think this is all she wrote. I don't see how Franscar can get away from this. He's trying to channel some abilities here from the Corsair, but yeah, there we go, killing all what's left of the carriers. And you know, Franscar is still in the game technically, but I don't know if he wants to stay in it for much longer. He's trying to churn out carriers again, but this attack coming from Heusa now is going to be incredibly difficult for Franscar to hold, with all these spellcasters and all these very well upgraded Hydralisks. So we may have had some short ZVZs, but we're being compensated with a very long PVZ instead here because of the strategy choice of Franscar. And here we go, the big push. He's gonna get some Darkstorm up. He's going to get his army in the face of Franscar and actually protecting the Reavers. They should not move out of the Darkstorm. They're actually very well protected in the Darkstorm, but it's kind of the right. He actually now... Oh, that's going to be a huge scare of him. Heusa has the burrow movement upgrade now, so he can burrow his units and move them around. That's a unit for... an upgrade for all of the Zerg units in Starbow, except for Banelings and Lurkers, but it comes a little bit later in the tech tree, and we don't see it too often. But right now, we only have a couple of Reavers, and there we go. GG from Franscar. Wow, what a game.